welcome back to the Middling Along podcast. I'm your host, Emma Thomas, and my guest today is Professor Joyce Harper. Strap in, this is quite a bio. You ready? Joyce is an award-winning educator, author, podcaster, academic and scientist. She's a Professor of Reproductive Science at University College London in their Institute for Women's Health, where she's head of the Reproductive Science and Society Group. She's worked in the fields of fertility, genetics and reproductive science since 1987. Written over 240 scientific papers, published 3 books. She is leading the development of the UK Menopause Education and Support Programme with support from key organisations, and that's one of the things that she's going to talk to us about today. And she's also co-founder of the UK Fertility Education Initiative and the International Reproductive Health Education Collaboration. That's quite a mouthful. She's working with schools in the UK and globally to help deliver reproductive health education. Her latest book, Your Fertile Years, What You Need to Know to Make Informed Choices, was published in 2021 by Sheldon Press, and her podcast is called Why Didn't Anyone Tell Me This?, available on all podcast channels. Deep breath. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Emma. Sorry about that. It's always embarrassing.
Stand up and own it. It's an incredible bio. Should we dive right in? And for anyone who hasn't heard about this, and I guess, you know, if they don't necessarily work in the sort of menopause menosphere, they may well not have heard of it yet. So you're leading the development of this UK-wide menopause education and support programme. What's it all about?
Okay, so I'll start a little bit further back. So as you said, I've worked in this field for decades, we won't say. I can't remember how many decades now. And through the years, I've been very aware, even when I first started in 1987, that women are not taught about how their body works, and especially their reproductive health. So back in the 80s, I did actually start writing the book that I've just finished. Better late than it took 30 years. But I did start writing it because at that time I was learning so much about women's health, about my menstrual cycle and my fertility. And I realized that my friends and I didn't understand this. And roll on to 2024. And guess what? We still don't know this. And obviously about 10 years ago, those same friends are now going through the menopause, and they hit this black box where they were going through this life-changing event and not having really hardly any knowledge about what was going to happen to them. So I started doing a lot of research. I've surveyed over 6,000 women to ask them what they know about the menopause and their views about the menopause and their experiences. And we've also started doing focus groups last year with different groups of women to ask them again about their experiences for various topics. So from this work, the sort of main points are that women did not know what was happening to them. And for many women, they went through years without joining the dots. They thought they were going mad. They thought they had cancer. They really thought that something
early
terrible.
onset dementia.
Yeah. All these things. They lost their mojo. They thought it was the end of their life. And they did not realise that it was the perimenopause. And unfortunately for many, when they went to their GP also didn't realise that they were in perimenopause. We'd get comments like, you know, a 45-year-old woman having experiences of perimenopause symptoms and going to her GP and being told, you're too young, you're not 51 yet. So that's one of the important things to know, that 51 is the average age women go through the menopause, but it really, anything from 45 to 55 is totally normal. So, and perimenopause symptoms can happen obviously before that.
Yeah.
So for me, I was very aware from all this research from the last sort of 8 years or so that there was a serious lack of knowledge. And my passion has always been education. It's my main part of my job besides my research since the 80s. So last year, got together some colleagues at UCL to talk about actually the research that we were doing. And then it was my colleague Shima Tariq that's also been doing work on menopause. And she said, why don't we develop a program a bit like the pregnancy classes that we go to when we're pregnant, but do it for the menopause? So that was the eureka moment. I was like, yes, that's what we need to do. So that's what we're doing. And Shima and I could sit down right now and write this program, but we're making it very difficult for ourselves. But I think it's really rich and really wonderful to do it this way. We're asking everybody who could be affected by menopause to tell us what they think how should this program look? What should it include? Have we thought of every different nuance of what we should be involving in this? So that's what we're right in the middle of doing now. We've done quite a lot of work, and I'm happy to share some of the things we've done already with you.
Mm.
So we're co-designing a very inclusive course and program, and what we're calling a suite of offerings to make sure that everybody in the UK understands the perimenopause, the menopause, and supports women going through this really life-changing event.
And I guess one of the things that kind of sprang to my mind, having done one of those pregnancy courses 14 years ago, was about kind of cost and access, and people from all backgrounds being able to access this. I mean, that's probably something that's a bit further down the line, but is that something that you're already very mindful of?
Absolutely. It's been on the agenda since day one. We want this to be available to every woman in the UK. We do not want anyone not to be able to take it because English isn't their first language or they don't have the means to pay for this. So we are going to have health economists on board. That's not my area. I can't figure out
Mm.
the numbers of things and the costs of things. There's two main options, I think, in my view. One, which would be unbelievable, is that the government funds it, but we'll laugh because we know that they don't really want to fund
We'll
anything
see. Well, the,
anymore.
the the women's health strategy apparently is putting menopause on the list of things to be tackled. But then, yeah, show me the money.
Yes, so they'll talk about everything, but I worry how much is hot air. And
Mm.
Leslie Regan, who's our women's health ambassador, is part of our advisory committee. So we've got her on board to try and push this through, and also Carolyn Harris, our women's health MP. But the other option is that obviously menopause in the workplace is big news as well, as it should be.
Yeah.
Better late than never. It's there. People are discussing it. So we are hoping that the corporate world, that we could sell these programs to the corporate world and even bespoke
Mhm.
them for different, especially large companies, and that the funds that we generate through that could either totally pay for women who want to have this on a one-to-one, or heavily subsidize it so that we can keep the costs
Mm.
to a minimum. And we're all academics that are developing this. The main core of people are from UCL, from University College London, so we don't have to make any money. We're not a company. We don't have to make money. It's purely something that we want out there, and we don't want any woman to miss this, because chances are the women who might miss it if it was expensive are the ones that really, really need it.
Mm.
So we don't
Yeah.
want it to be anything like, £200 or anything to do the main course. We want this to be as low, or ideally, we hope, free.
What are the sort of the delivery mechanisms for kind of getting this out there that you're thinking about, or is that something that's sort of a couple of steps further down the kind of the process?
So all the things we're talking about are still very much being discussed with everybody. We want to hear from everyone and everyone's views. What we've thought about now, we had a brilliant workshop last year with over 50 people who gave us, we put various questions to them, and they gave us fabulous ideas. We came out, my head was exploding. Such a brilliant day.
In a good
But
way.
in a good way. But we don't want this to be a sort of classroom thing where you go in, someone talks at you for an hour and ask some
Mm.
questions, and you go home. We want to be very interactive. And one of the questions we're asking everybody now, who would you like this to be taught by? And from the workshop, people thought it should be a facilitator. So it doesn't have to be even a nurse or a doctor. It just needs to be someone who's properly trained. And the most important thing is facilitating the discussions and the knowledge exchange within the group. So we want to make really innovative education tools that, for example, if we're talking about exercise, we might have a 5-minute video of someone telling us how important exercise is for women. And then within the group, we can provide a list of questions and discussions. In their community, are there obstacles that they may have towards doing exercise? Maybe they live in a community where there isn't a gym nearby, or maybe they're in a community that's not very safe to sort of go jogging or exercise outside, or maybe they're in an area where there's lots of facilities, but maybe they're really expensive. So it will really
Mm.
depend on the group. So the facilitator will use the educational resources that we make and then have a sort of lesson plan, but it'll be very bespoke. So within the group of women in that program for that particular session, they will see what affects them and how we can help support them and encourage them to think about different things like nutrition and exercise and all of those sorts of things within their specific community.
And are you thinking that that might be sort of differentiated potentially for people who are kind of coming from a kind of a younger age cohort, or people who are postmenopausal, or that again you would be able to sort of tailor it according to the demographic of particular
Yeah,
group?
so it will be a suite of offerings. So
Mm,
for what we want to start off with, so my research has shown that, as I said, women don't realize they're in the perimenopause because they don't identify those symptoms. So something we really want to do for everybody, so men can take this program as well, maybe have a one-off session that we call something like Menopause 101, where we teach the basics. So these are the symptoms, this is the age it can happen, just the sort of nuts and bolts in one session, very information giving. So we'd like everyone to do that as soon as we've developed it, so that they can understand. That would really tick one of the biggest problems that came from my research so far, that they just didn't understand what it was. Then when people are in the perimenopause, so once those symptoms are starting, we really want them to be in the room with other people who are going through the same thing. So if we go back to the pregnancy courses that happen, they really work well because the people in the room are all experiencing similar but not identical
mm,
situations. So, we can moan about our piles or our trapped nerve or indigestion or whatever with other people in the room, and appreciate that everyone's having a different experience. So we are thinking that the main program that we offer will be specifically for women in the perimenopause. Obviously, we've got women who are going to miss this, who are now postmenopausal. So that's something we will be thinking about. But we are thinking about things like neurodiversity. So
mm,
neurodiverse individuals, we would probably need to design a course in a way that's specific to their needs. People that don't have English as their first language, the LGBT community. We appreciate that a trans man would have a very different menopause
yeah,
experience than a woman. And some of them have surgical or chemical induced menopause because of the treatment that they're having. So we need something for them, and them having a support group. I think they're a group that really probably don't have any menopause support at the moment. So having that
yeah.
support, with their peers that are going through similar problems with them, I think will be amazing. So we're thinking of also surgical menopause, women that go through very early menopause, all of those specific groups of people we are in dialogue with now to try and see how can we cover their needs. So even though we see a sort of central main program that would be for women going through the menopause at the sort of average age, there are lots of variations that we're going to have to develop to deal with all those different situations around that. So there'll be variations of that main program. So you can see we're really trying to be inclusive. We're trying to co-design this with all those different groups. And there's lots to think about. And within a company, lots of people have said, well, we need the men. I mean, I've done a lot of corporate talks, and what they always say is we haven't got enough of the men here. I've had one meeting with
Yeah.
one guy. I can't remember
Self-select them out of those things. It's like, "Yep, that's not for me." But like, "No,
I
we really need you."
all the women at the end of this meeting with the one guy said, "We're going to take you to the pub and buy you a drink because you are a superstar." Bit, and then I had another follow up at the same company, and there were lots of men there. So we we need the women to be able to have their peer support with their similar situation, but we need the men to understand this. So within the corporate world, We are going to be in discussions with different companies about how would you like this to look, because we want to make sure that the men who are working with women that are going through perimenopause and menopause really understand and can be supportive of their female staff. So there's loads to do.
Going to be a busy year. So you're obviously you're kind of still in that sort of information gathering phase at the moment. How long is that going to kind of go on for, and how can people get involved if they want to?
Okay, so we've got 3 wonderful things happening at the moment. So we have a survey that came out a few days ago, and it's for all women over 18, any woman of any age. We want to hear from you. So yeah, we want all women to fill in the survey, but we also do want the trans men, non-binary to fill in the survey. But it's only for, we only want to hear at the moment from people who could be affected by the menopause, or who have been. So certainly post-menopause women as well. So we want to hear from them about what they think about the program, any issues they may be having. We've given a list of topics that from the workshop was felt should be included. You know, is this right? If we missed anything, any specific needs that they might have, how long should each session be, how often should they be, how long should the whole course be. So we're asking all those questions now in the survey. We'd love everyone to be involved and everyone to give us their opinion on that. Then we're homing down a little bit deeper into this by doing focus groups. Very similar questions, they're almost identical to the survey, but within a focus group we can get much deeper, richer data from the group. So that's the second thing. So if you want to do the focus groups, again, they just need to contact one of us, and we've got a number of dates already in our diary. And then we have got the basic syllabus, and what we want to do is we're working with various groups at the moment to see how we can flesh that out. So for example, one on sleep, we want to see what sort of information people need to know about sleep. There might be specific issues people have with sleep that keep coming up. You know, for example, waking up too early, then get to sleep, but waking up early, those sorts of things. So we're happy to work with, if anyone wants to be involved in any of those, they're just less than 1 hour Zoom meeting, then get in contact with me, and
we'll put some details in the show notes about how people can sign up, do the survey, and find out some more information. So we'll make sure that that's in there if you want to check and get involved. What's the kind of the cutoff point for the survey, for example?
We want to get to a couple of thousand. We're only at a couple of hundred at the moment, but it's only been a few days. So really, we'll keep it open for as long as it takes to get to a high enough number. And I check it every day. So we're just seeing, have we got representations of different people there? So we'll definitely keep it open for a couple more weeks. But I think that we'll probably close it sometime in February, because we've got to start looking at the data. And then the focus groups are going to be over the next 3-4 months. And then we are going to have another workshop, probably around June or July time, that if people wanted to come to, they can let us know. It will be limited because we want to really get good discussions going with people, want to hear from everyone about what they think about them, about what we've done so far. So we'll report that. We're also going to have an event at the House of Commons in the next few months with Carolyn Harris and Leslie Regan to talk about where we are so far and where we can go with this, and where the government can be involved. And so then by the end of summer this year, we've just been working on this for just slightly over a year, and we really want to consolidate where we are. And hopefully by then we will be on track to get additional funding. And the next stage will then be to start making the educational resources, and also figuring out all the nuts and bolts, for example, about how long the course will be, and nailing all that down. So really narrowing everything down. And so this is like the consultation period at the moment. And then come September, we will be sitting down and really putting everything together and making the different programs. And then obviously what we've got to do is test it and see what people think about it. I would be over the moon if I'm quite an impatient person, but I'm learning to sort of slow
you
down.
And me both.
Not rush so much. But I would love that by the end of the year, maybe we're testing out our Menopause 101, our one session. And I'd love to do some of those face to face. I know online works very well, but as an educator and a speaker, I get so much more out of having an audience, and I can interact. I can look at people's faces when I'm saying things, and are they frowning? Are they nodding? How are they responding to what I'm saying? So I definitely hope to start that. Maybe we can do some of those. We'll have the content for that for sure. So be great to do some Menopause 101s live so that we can test the waters and then see what we need to do to develop that further. But we want to have everything online, so that it's really accessible. Some people prefer things online, I know for sure. So we want to cover every base to suit everyone's needs.
And then so it sounds like the full all singing, all dancing version would be what, sort of sometime 2025?
Yes.
TBC.
I I really can't wait to see. I can see it. I can so much see it in my head. That I live in quite a small town. We have a community hub that's free to use. I can see the women walking in the door. Ready. I've held a few menopause cafes, and I run a women's group there as well. I've done for years. So I've done so much sort of leeway into this, and I can just see the women coming through the doors for the
I just want to
first.
jump ahead and do it and have it all all
I
ready
mean,
to go.
as I said, I could design it all now and deliver it right now, but I'm putting the brakes on, doing the consultation. And as I said, I really want us to use innovative ways of delivering education. There's so many funky things we can do, and definitely not someone standing there talking at the audience and then asking questions at the end. We really, really do not want that one. Very interactive. All of my talks I give are very, very interactive, and we want them really interactive. It will be ongoing. I think with anything like this, we'll continuously improve. I mean, I've run master's courses since 96 and 1996. And we evaluate and improve it every single year. We make changes, we give someone a little bit more time, we add something, we realize that they didn't quite understand this and we need to change this.
Yeah. Well, so much is changing so quickly now, isn't it, in this world that.
Yeah, and especially language. So language really changes. I'll share something with you. In the survey, we wanted to know whether people were female, trans male, non-binary, and other. And the last few days on Twitter, there's been a big uproar. So I did change the wording of that question, and it was our fault. We that designed it, and I'm obviously juggling lots of things at the moment, meetings and teaching and traveling and conferences, etc. So looking back, it was a silly mistake, but we had written it was something like, how do you identify? And we wrote female, trans male, non-binary, other, and we had tested it with 40 people before. No one was bothered. But online, lots of people said, I am a woman. I don't identify as female. I'm a woman. So we changed the question. We changed it to which describes you. And I think that's fine. And we didn't write woman, we wrote female. And my problem about writing woman is that some trans women feel they are women, whereas female is very clear. It's the biological term. So
It can be quite a minefield, can't it? I think you're just good at getting these things. It's important to get right, but equally, I think, sometimes it's.
But you can't please everybody, because some of those people that have been very vocal on Twitter do not believe that you can be a trans man or a non-binary. So no matter what we put there, they wouldn't accept it. And I can't change their mind, but we don't want to exclude those people who have transitioned to being a man and will experience menopause. And I think their story is really important and their support's really important. So it's really, I mean, I've been in the firing line from both sides. Some people have called me anti-trans. Some people have called me too pro-trans. I can't win. I absolutely really want this program to use the word woman as well, because so many things, when people have said things like chest feeding and stop using, people with a vagina and that sort of thing. That just really gets my back up. I think we need to use the word woman. But I must say that in our we've generated a teacher's guide for reproductive health education in schools. It's a global guide, and it will be translated, and it's just going to come online very soon. It's just being made to look all lovely at the moment. The graphic people are redrawing images and things.
Oh,
But
great.
it's something that I've done with my international reproductive education group. But we opened it to consultation, and the consultation, we had many people who said we should use male and female and not man and woman. So we had a big discussion about it. Some of my committee didn't think that was right. They thought we should use man and woman. So it was complicated. So we have written in the teacher's notes that we have decided to use the biological terms of male and female and not man and woman. So we haven't got any man and woman in it. And I'm not trying to eradicate the word woman. I really am not. I stand up many, many times. I work at the Institute for Women's Health, and I'm very proud to work at the Institute for Women's Health. And many of my research papers have only been with women. But I am leaving it to the teachers to decide. And I've suggested to the teachers that they ask their class which terms would they like to use. That actually came from one of my students. I've discussed this a lot with my students. And they said, why don't the teachers set the language first with the class and ask the class what do they feel comfortable with using? And we've told the teachers, you are absolutely at liberty to edit any of the slides. It's totally up to them. So if they want to use male and female or man and woman within the slides, then it's up to them to do that. So we've kept it to the biology. Yeah, as I said, there can be confusion sometimes using man and woman. So we want it to be really clear. So I can't win, unfortunately.
You can try and please all the people all the time, but you can only try.
Yeah.
Let's pivot now and talk about your own podcast, which I think is going into series 2. Tell us a bit more about that, and how did you come up with the name for starters?
So I really like talking to people. Anyone that knows me will know that I'm good at chatting. And I've met so many amazing people in my career. I'm very lucky that I travel the world and meet just amazing people. And to be honest, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts myself. I listen to a few, but I know some people that religiously listen to, I've seen the stats, some people that listen to podcasts a lot. But I just thought it'd be a really good idea to have some conversations with these people. And my thoughts had mainly been about demystifying some of the misinformation that we have around our health. My podcast is mainly about reproductive health. But for example, last year we have one on aging, and there's lots on things like exercise and things that apply to everybody. So it's not just, and it's certainly not just for women, but most of the guests happen to be female. But demystifying those myths, bringing in the conversation about health. And then for me, so many times people have said to me, especially when I was writing my book, why didn't I know this before? Why did no one tell me about female fertility decline? Why did no one tell me about menopause? Why did no one tell me that life post-menopause can be absolutely fantastic? All those things we're never told. So then I thought, yes, let's do a podcast. So I only do it once every 2 weeks. It's just really a bit of fun. But there's so many amazing people. So already for this year, I'm almost booked up to the end of the year. Just today, I was speaking to somebody who has written a fabulous book about sleep. And I just seized the moment. I said, actually, it was about the Menopause project. They're going to help with that. And I said, can you be on my podcast? Yeah. So they're booked in for next month. I just couldn't resist. They're so brilliant. So it's lots of people have just written a book. So I have to read all their books before the podcast, which is great.
I know. Tell me about it.
Awesome.
Like this.
I know, to read them. So yeah, I just want. I always feel that in my job, I learn so much and speak to so many amazing people, and I always think I wish everyone else could know what I've just learned or who I've just spoken to. So for me, it's extending those conversations to a public forum where you can hear the discussions with some of these brilliant people who work on everything from exercise to menopause to fertility to periods. We've got a bodybuilder coming on. We've got some celebrity TV doctors coming on. We're talking about conception. We're talking about everything. So yeah, it's you know what it's like. It's a hard slog to be putting these out. Is anyone listening? You know, the stats last year I was listened to in 72 countries, which I loved, on platforms that I didn't even know existed. There's some odd platforms out there. So yeah, it's good fun. It's a bit of hard work, but I just love having these amazing conversations. And this year I want to meet in person some of the people I've had on my podcast. So many of them are, by coincidence, cold water swimmers, which is something I'm really.
Well, this is another thing that you're very into. Oh, interesting.
We have our first paper coming out on cold water swimming and menstrual and menopause symptoms in the next couple of weeks.
Oh,
So
good.
yes,
Keep an eye out
yeah,
for that.
yeah.
My
It's
husband's always trying to persuade me. I'm afraid I'm not a fan, but he's a big sauna person, so he's all about jumping in cold water after being in the sauna. But
yeah. Well, I just been to Oslo and it was -24, and we went in the water. The water wasn't -24. Went in the
no.
water, and we were walking round the sauna with like our swimming costumes on, and it was -20. It was an experience. It was so yes, very passionate about these things. But this year, I want to meet some of those people that've been on the podcast, and I either have dinner with them or, if
We're
I
on the
can,
road show, the Joyce Harper road
get
show.
in the water with them.
Brilliant. Well, so anyone who wants to find out more about you can go to www.joyceharper.com. And then I think the link for the survey is probably something that rather than read it out, I'll put it in the show notes because it's going to be, one of those sort of numbers,
Complicated.
words, letters kind of things, complicated things. But and why didn't anyone tell me this? Available on all your favorite podcast channels, so go and check that out too. And thank you so much, Joyce, and look forward to seeing more news about the program as that unfolds.
Thank you very much, Emma.
You've been listening to the Middling Along podcast. Do remember to subscribe to be notified when our next episode is live. And why not visit the blog at www.middlingalong.com to sign up to my newsletter as well. I do hope you enjoyed listening today. If you did, I'd be really grateful if you would consider leaving a short review, as that helps people find the podcast and helps get it noticed. Hope you can join us next time. Goodbye for now.